Zeke?
Thanks, John. You were asked earlier this week about the president's personal views on climate change and whether or not he believes it's a hoax. You said you hadn't had a chance to have that conversation with him. Now it's been 48, 72 hours. What does the president actually believe about climate change? Does he still believe it's a hoax? Could you clarify that, since apparently nobody else in the White House can?
Yeah, I have not had an opportunity to have that discussion.
Don't the American people deserve to know what the president believes on such
I
an
think
important
that
issue?
Administrator Pruitt pointed out that what the president is focused on is making sure that we have clean water, clean air, and making sure that we have the best deal for the American workers. Blake.
Sure.
Sorry.
No worries. Quick question for you on related to the Paris Climate Agreement. Why does the president feel it's important to continue to reduce carbon emissions and export clean energy technology?
I think he understands the importance of clean air, clean water, as I just mentioned, and a healthy environment, but also doing so in a way that provides the American workers and our economy a way to grow. But obviously, as Administrator Pruitt pointed out, that we've got a lot of technology that we can export to other countries and help them.
Just a quick question as it relates to climate change. A very simple definition of climate change is a change in the Earth's weather patterns. The EPA administrator said today that he does feel there is some value to the studies that say that the Earth is warming somewhat. Does the president share the EPA administrator's thoughts on this topic? And why has the administration sort of backed away from using the words climate change?
I have not, as I mentioned to Zeke, I have not had an opportunity to specifically talk to the president about that. Amen.
Thanks, Sean. Yesterday, the president painted a pretty dire economic picture if the United States were to stay in the Paris Accord, saying it would be disastrous for the U.S. economy. And yet, dozens of the top CEOs of American corporations lobbied the president in order to stay in the Paris Accords. Why would the president argue that this is bad for the economy if all of those CEOs are saying, you know what, we need to do this? Is the president right about the economic forecast and all those private sector leaders wrong?
I think the president took input from a lot of individuals, and there were other sectors that were very concerned about the implementation of it. And frankly, I think there were some companies and some organizations that are among those that you mentioned that while they maybe wanted to stay in, also expressed concern about the target levels. But at the end of the day, the president's #1 priority is to get the best deal for the American people. This is who they elected last year. I think one of the things that we've got to remember is that the president was very clear on the campaign trail about his position on this, but he was also clear that he was going to negotiate the best deal for the American people. And if you look at all of the deals that we have, whether they're the trade deals or Paris, the president's made it very clear that he's committed to getting the best deal for America, America's workers, America's manufacturers.
Is Johnson going to replace Elon Musk and Bob Iger on the President's Advisory Council?
I don't know at this point. Jim.
Thank you, Sean. The president's critics are claiming that the pulling out of the accord will lift China as a global leader. Do you agree with that sentiment? What does the White House have to say about that?
I think part of the reason that the president said it was a bad deal yesterday is because countries, including China, were not making substantial progress in reducing their carbon footprint. They weren't doing enough, and America was carrying the load. So I think by negotiating a better deal, hopefully we can get a better result for our country and the world. John.
Thank you, Sean. Yesterday, President Macron of France delivered a sharply worded speech in English attacking the president on the climate change decision, saying it is bad for all of our children, and he specifically called on scientists to come and move to France. What's the president's response to President Macron?
I think that the president has made it clear since day one that his job is to protect the interest of this country and our citizens. As he said yesterday, he was elected to represent Pittsburgh, not Paris. Jessica.
Thanks, John. 2 questions. Number one, when we heard the administrator talk about this decision on the Paris Climate Accord, he said it's not a signal that the U.S. wants to disengage on climate policy. So what are the steps that the administration is taking to engage internationally on climate? And secondly, as you well know, climate has been a key part of cooperation between the U.S. and China. Will you try to replace that very important sort of intersection of interests with something else? Will you continue to do some technological cooperation on clean energy, for example, with the Chinese? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, this is a decision that was just made yesterday afternoon, and I think the president is going to engage both with domestic stakeholders. He mentioned in the speech yesterday he looks forward to talking to leaders in both parties about a way forward and reasonable ways in which we can engage in that. And then he'll obviously continue to talk to world leaders, but that's a process that has to evolve. What's
and
that?
China, the relationship with China as a point of cooperation, have you guys given some thought to how you'll manage? Because the model was you manage tensions with China as the U.S. government by having areas of cooperation, and this was previously an area of cooperation. There's obviously other areas that the White House is working on now with China, but do you envision some other cooperation on the area of climate with the Chinese government?
Well, the relationship that President Trump has established through President Xi has been quite remarkable. He's talked about it very clearly, and it's a model in which they'll continue to build their relationship and talk about issues, whether it's this or North Korea or other areas, economic areas, that they're going to work together on. So I think that the great thing about this issue is that the relationship that the president has and continues to build with President Xi is one that will allow them to move forward.
Sean,
April.
Sean, could you tell me, how is the president dealing with the fact that there are several mayors, many mayors, from a bipartisan group, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, who are against the president's withdrawal from the Paris Agreement? How does this president move forward with what he's saying about making coal great again and taking walking away from the economics of clean energy, and then walking out of Paris when you have mayors who are saying we're going to continue with the Paris Agreement?
Well, if a mayor or a governor wants to enact a policy, that's on a range of issues, they're accountable to their own voters, and that's what they should do. We believe in states' rights, and so if a locality, a municipality, or a state wants to enact a policy that their voters or their citizens believe in, then that's what they should do.
And one other question.
But I will say that with respect to elected officials, there was, I think, a large contingent of officials at every level of government that were very pleased with the president's decision yesterday and applauded him for that.
You have a bipartisan group of Republican and Democratic mayors who are very upset about this.
And we have some bipartisan support for it. Caitlin.
Thank you. Did Secretary of State Rex Tillerson endorse withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement?
I'm not privy to the conversations that individuals had with the president.
Is there a reason he wasn't at the announcement yesterday?
I don't know.
Okay, secondly, can you clarify the nature of the conversations that Jared Kushner had with Russian officials and a banker in December? And what was the date of the meeting with the banker?
I cannot, and as I've mentioned the other day, that we're focused on the president's agenda, and going forward, all questions on these matters will be referred to outside counsel Mark Haskins.
But how can you not answer questions on it when the president himself tweets about it?
We're focused on his agenda, and all going forward, all questions on this matter will be referred to outside counsel. Jill.
Reviewing his tweets?
Jill.
Two things. Firstly, nobody is actually responding to any of those questions. So I don't know where you guys are in actually finding spokespeople or people who want to respond to those, but that would be helpful. Okay. And then two things. Do you guys have any update on the search for the FBI director?
As I mentioned yesterday, I guess a couple days ago, the president continues to has met with some candidates. When we have an update on that, we'll let you know.
And then you said that you hadn't talked to the president yet about whether he still believes that climate change is a hoax. Would it be possible for you to have that conversation with him and then report back to us at the next briefing?
If I can, I will. Mary.
Given that you and Administrator Pruitt can't say where the president stands on climate change, does this mean that members of this administration helped the president make this decision to withdraw from the Paris Accord without knowing where the president stands, without knowing whether or not he thinks climate change is real?
My understanding is that individuals gave the president advice on the deal at hand, and he made a decision on what was best for the country and our people on the merits of the agreement.
Sean, we know that the president heard a lot of points of view on this, on both sides of the issue, and there was an impression, maybe a false impression, that it was a difficult decision and that he was wavering. In the end, though, yesterday, he was emphatic about his, getting out of the agreement. In the end, was this an easy decision or was it a close decision?
I honestly don't know. I mean, that's what the president is the ultimate decider, and when he comes to make a decision, when he gets the information that he's required, he lets us know that he has a decision and he announces it.
And one other thing, there's a lot of talk about renegotiation. Why renegotiate? The United States has the authority to simply reduce the targets. Why not just do that?
Because the president believes that it is in our country's best interest to renegotiate the deal. For what it's worth, today happens to be National Leave Work Early Day. I hope you all get a chance to participate. If you didn't, maybe go home if you participated in National Donut Day and go home a little early and work it off. But with that, I hope you get to take advantage of that day. Have a great weekend.